Hello and welcome. My name is Rashim Moga and I'm your host for this Empowered Women of the World podcast. This podcast is for you, it is for me, and it is for all women who want to take charge of their career and happiness. In this weekly podcast, we'll talk about technology, we'll talk about leadership, and we will talk about mindfulness. We will talk about how you can discover, visualize, and actualize your success, whatever that means to you. We will also talk about our common opponent, the conscious and unconscious bias, which we deal with on a daily basis. And we'll share ways to navigate work politics. At the end of each podcast, I will share with you a tip or a resource that you can use to be successful. It's going to be a fun ride, so hop on and join me on this journey every week. Before we start today's podcast, I want to remind you about our upcoming eWOW 2020 Virtual Summit on April 25th. It's global, virtual, and empowering summit that you can attend from anywhere in the world. It's going to be an action-packed day with sessions from women leaders on technology and leadership, so make sure to get your tickets ASAP. I'll put the link in the show notes below. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Etienne Huret on the show. Etienne heads central functions across the solution centers in India and Romania. A global leader, Etienne leads a team of diverse services spanning functions like finance, risk, and compliance, with a focus on creating value for Societe Generale Group, and is actively involved in the diversity and inclusion initiatives. Hi Etienne, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rashim, and good evening. It's already morning in India, and I enjoy a beautiful warm morning in my garden here.
Awesome. So Etienne, you have spent so much of your career at various places across the globe, and you have a multicultural family. How has this experience shaped up your thoughts on the importance of diversity at workplace?
Well, yes, Rashim, I have been lucky to work across the globe in Asia and specifically in India for 9 years, in Europe as well, in Paris, in Brussels, in Lisbon, in Bucharest, and I did many business trips to America. Yes, you are right, I have quite a diverse background, but a little bit less than my wife, which has, like you and me, she has 4 grandparents, but each of them from a different continent. And so she has direct genetics from Africa, Europe, China, and Australasia. So that's quite unique. And I am very lucky because my wife likes cooking. And so she cooks from all over the place, including all of her grandparent places. So I am enjoying very good dishes and meal at home, and specifically in those current time of COVID-19. So yes, diversity helped me to understand that there is no single way of organizing things in an organization. There is no single way of seeing the truth, but there is always multiple dimensions of many aspects of what we deal in a company. It helped me to listen, sometimes to crazy ideas. It helped me to accept the diversity of thought and not to reject by default ideas which are not conventional. But of course, I am not perfect, and certainly many times I have not listened enough. But just for instance, let me give you a few highlights of benefit of diversity for corporation and organization. First of all, and maybe the most classical example, is innovation. We forget many times that innovation is an iterative process. So just let's take an example such as Google Maps. 10 years ago, Google Maps was just a map. And today it's an amazing application which is used by billions of people to plan and schedule their travel all over the world. And that's the beauty of diversity and the iteration of innovation which has allowed such kind of things. Diversity is very good as well for decision making and risk management. Companies such as Nokia or Kodak are good examples of organization which has missed opportunities in their past. And diversity in leadership might have helped them, at that point of time. Talent retention maybe, and this is extremely important. Talent needs to be stretched. A talent appreciates the challenges. He or she appreciates to experiment new way of doing things. And if you offer only one standard, you won't be able to retain many talents. And of course, talent, it's as well about talent acquisition. And talented people don't have a single background, a single education, or a single gender. Talent are everywhere, and we should open up to all of them. It's required in nowadays world. And maybe the most important is fun, I think. You know, with some of my managers, we decided to take class of sign language a few months ago, a year ago actually. And I can tell you that the energy level, the empathy, the active listening skills engage are tremendous when you are practicing sign language. And I can testify that on the floor in which we have employees with hearing impairment, those floors are the most energetic. And when they understand that you are able to have a minimal conversation with them in sign language, it is definitely overwhelming. Lots of things to learn with diversity on an organization.
Yeah, and I love what you said that, you know, talent is distributed equally, right? It's available everywhere. It's actually the opportunities that are distributed unequally, I think, in some way or form. So that brings me to a nice segue into my next question, which is, we always talk about and understand the importance of diversity of thought, but you know, it's not easy to achieve in an organization. What are some of the best practices that you recommend?
Well, maybe first of all, diversity is hard to achieve because diversity is very close to identity. So we should beware. A little bell should ring when you address the subject of diversity. You know, when we talk about gender, about religions, about colors, about sexual orientation, all of that is very, very close to identity. Diversity as well is change, and change is hard. Ask a smoker how hard it is to stop smoking. You know, it's not something that it is easy. And maybe as well in organization, what is quite difficult is the way we promote and the way we hire. You know, we unconsciously usually look towards a single way of behavior and a single way of thinking. You know, most of the time I'm hiring people which are like me, because of course I'm the best, and this is where it is dangerous. I need to protect myself for such kind of attitude.
Yeah, we all do that, don't we?
Yes, we all do that indeed. As well, maybe, you know, as a senior leader, most of the time we are observed, we are copied in an organization. And you know, if a senior leader is not, if the senior leadership is not diverse, then the organization stick to one way of behaving. And that's dangerous as well. Many times, you know, I have been asked how it is to succeed in Societe Generale. As a senior leader, I should be very careful here. You know, my way won't fit others. So they should not necessarily copy me. They can get inspiration, but we should definitely be very careful when we explain such kind of behavior in an organization. And most of the time as well, we try to transform and we try to reach diversity goal by statistic. You know, our goal is to reach a KPI, but we don't transform by statistic. We have to lead the change with the heart and with the mind. And so the question of purpose is central. And it is not a top-down purpose. Each and every manager should reflect and understand why he or she is looking for diversity. And as soon as he has, you know, understood what is his purpose, the journey becomes much easier. So let me give you one example here. I will give you my example. What is my purpose for diversity? So my purpose for diversity is freedom of speech and freedom of ideas, because myself, I have suffered to be in an organization where I was not able to express myself. I have joined organizations in the past in which the way to succeed was set. It is up or out. And the manager in such organization are very strong because they have succeeded and they are in their comfort zone. And all the organization is centered towards that way of success. But when you join such organization, either you adjust or you don't stay. And it is very, very difficult to contribute with your own touch, you know, in such organization. Adding your pinch of salt is a challenge. And so when you come with something different, many times you are tagged as crazy. You are not necessarily listened. And sometimes there is even people who joked at you. And that's definitely not very pleasant. So we need to make an effort to tolerate things which are unusual. We need to encourage people to bring their own pinch of salt, and spices to the meal. And as soon as you start to listen that what others have to say, then you can add value. And then you realize that sometimes there is many other people who have something to say. Many of the junior staff or even the senior staff who were silent and following the mainstream suddenly have something to add, and breaking that pattern in a company is a very interesting challenge, and that's what excites me as well.
That was beautifully said. I couldn't have said it better, Etienne. I loved your whole idea that everybody brings in their own pinch of salt to the food, right? And that's food for thought. But you and I have talked about it before. Diversity is meaningless without inclusion. What strategies have you used as a leader to make sure that the work culture is inclusive, the team feels included despite the differences, and how do they become the part of the solution, right? And feel that they're part of the solution rather than just doing their job?
Thank you, Hashim, for asking this question, because I think it's one of the key questions. What should I do as a leader effectively to push forward the culture of inclusivity? The way I do it is I encourage first my team, my leadership team, to challenge me. People should not be afraid of speaking up, and they should express their thoughts. When they understand that you are open for new perspective and contradictory view, it is a process of inclusivity. Of course, when a decision is made, you should expect discipline, but it is extremely important to hear the different voices before going to the decision making. I think as well that you should decentralize the decision making. You know that I have a team which are span across 3 cities, so Bangalore in India, Chennai in India as well, and Bucharest in Romania. So in the current context of COVID-19, the situation in each country is very different. And so you should allow your team to take the right decision by themselves, of course with sharing, with global perspective, but it is important that the decision process to be decentralized as well. So those two aspects for me are extremely important. Give people the opportunity to speak up and allow them to challenge you, and of course decentralize the decision making in large organizations such as Societe Generale. Tolerance and respect are fundamental principles as well. At the opposite, you should be very careful with status and title. In an inclusive organization, your legitimacy comes with expertise and dialogue. It is not depending of the numbers of stars that you wear on your jacket. And maybe last aspect for me, which is central for an inclusive organization, is about learning. Learning is the central way I see inclusion. As a leader, you should permanently indulge yourself with new learnings. You should be humble enough for that, and it is not always easy. And this is why I still have a very long way to go ahead of me, because it's a never-ending journey of learning, of humility, to reach that true inclusivity for all.
Yeah, and if you really look at a true, who are true leaders don't necessarily have answers to all the questions. What they, however, have is the ability to understand what resources they can tap into, what intellect they can tap into to get the right answers. And, and that's what learning is all about, understanding your team and building that trust relationship with your team, and leveraging the skill set that you have within your team. So these are unprecedented times. I would have never thought in my lifetime I would be dealing with the pandemic and being in a shelter-in-place lockdown situation. We are dealing with COVID-19, and in most part of the world, we are practicing social distancing. How can organizations ensure inclusion during this time, right? How do we ensure that our teams feel included in all the decisions that we are making at this time, where sometimes we might not get an opportunity as leaders to collaborate with them before we make some decisions?
Yes. Yes, it's as you said, it's a very unprecedented time, unexpected time as well. Who would have guessed 3 months ago that the world would be in such a situation today? Yes, it's exceptional, and it's exceptional for everybody. You know, there is no single person on this planet who has experienced that at that scale before. So for me, the most important thing in this situation is to be empathetic. Be empathetic with everyone, and of course, even more with people with disability, with difficulties. Ask them if they need special support. Give your support. When you start a meeting, ask if everyone is okay. Ask regularly about the situation that each of your team members endure. In private conversation if required. But basically demonstrate how much you care about them and how much you care about their well-being in this very complicated time. After, there is as well daily practice that you could put in place that helps in my perspective. You know, you can have daily call with your team early morning. That's what I do every morning. We have half an hour daily call with my management team, which is spread across the 3 cities that I have mentioned before. And this helps all of us to get our energy level at the top and to make sure that we are delivering the services for our company. We keep as well our camera on. You know, many times body language is very important, and it's not possible anymore because we are not sharing the same room. However, with your camera on, you can effectively feel a little bit extra than only the voice. Of course, the voice conveys as well a very important message about your team members. But those are very few simple practices that you can have on a regular basis. But of course, most importantly, everybody should stay safe. Everybody should practice sports. And yes, this is the way I see our situation today, and how I try to encourage my team in this difficult time.
Yeah, and I think after this pandemic, the world and we all are never going to go back to the old ways of how we worked, how we learned, how we network. It's all going to change. I think it was long overdue. COVID-19 has just fastened the pace to changing the way we operate as a society and work in the corporate environment. It's just unfortunate that a pandemic had to actually drive that. But Etienne, I'm so excited for the diversity and inclusion initiatives that you are driving and at Societe Generale. Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your thoughts with the eWOW family.
Thank you very much, Rashim. It was a pleasure for me to be with you this morning. I really appreciate our interaction. I appreciate your thought as well, because I think that you are very experimented on all those fields, and so thank you very much for inviting me in your forum. Stay safe. Thank you, Rashim.
Thank you. And today's resource for you is the link to the eWOW 2020 Virtual Summit. The link is in the show notes below. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for loving, liking, supporting, and sharing the podcast. Remember, sharing is caring. I love your feedback emails coming, so please keep them coming. I look forward to seeing you again in our next podcast. Till then, keep empowering the world and please stay safe.